Family beach trip this year is gonna be perfect, I said, trying to break the tension. Tom. My stepdad didn't miss a beat. He laughed and went, "Yeah, well, it's just for family this time, Sean." I froze. Then they all laughed, like that was the punchline. Last week, that's when it snapped. It was supposed to be just brunch. Brielle made reservations at this overpriced farm-to-table place. You know, the type avocado toast with a name and waiters who look like they judge your order. I didn't even want to go. But when Diane, my stepmom, said it was just family, I figured maybe it was an olive branch. I should have known better. It's been building for years, honestly. I kept brushing it off. That's just how they are. Let it go, keep the peace. But lately, it's been harder to ignore. Like last year, I paid for Chase's car insurance twice without a thank you, not even a text. The year before that, they accidentally booked a family cruise the same week as my graduation from grad school. Didn't show up. Not even a card, just Brielle texting congrats and then posting poolside pics from Cozumel. I swallowed it all because that's what I was taught. You don't burn bridges. But what if the bridge was never yours to begin with? So yeah, flashback to a year ago. Me and Alana, my girlfriend, took a 4-day break to Cannon Beach. Nothing fancy. We split the cabin, cost packed sandwiches, did some hiking. Honestly, it was the first time in months I felt like I could breathe. Apparently, my family didn't like that. I didn't even post pictures, but Brielle saw one on Alana's story, just me holding a cup of clam chowder with a sunset in the background. Cute, chill, innocent. 2 days later, I got a voicemail from Diane that sounded like an HR rep giving bad news. "Sean, we've always supported you, and now you're excluding us. It's hurtful." Tom said I'd changed. Chase called me selfish. Brielle sent a snarky reel that said some people forget who was there for them, like it was directed at me. I didn't even respond. I figured they'd calm down. They didn't. Back to brunch. I brought a bottle of red wine. Just trying to be civil. Alana was working, so I was solo. When I showed up, they were already there, Tom flipping sausages at the table grill, Diane fussing with seating, Brielle glued to her phone. No one said hi. I sat. Made small talk with Brielle about her new business, which I'm 90% sure is just her reselling Shein clothes at a markup. I tried to keep it light. Then I said it. Can't wait for summer break. Me and Alana are thinking about a little road trip. That's when Tom dropped the bomb. That fake laugh, that rehearsed line. Well, that trip's just for family, without you. They all laughed. Even Diane smirked like it was a sitcom joke. I didn't say a word. I left, quiet, straight-faced. Didn't even take the wine back. Screw them. Fast forward to this morning. I get an alert from my bank. Unusual withdrawal attempt, $5,000. Guess whose name popped up? Diane. Apparently, the joint trust account my mom left me, the one I never closed out of dumb guilt, was still open. She tried to drain it, without asking, like it was hers. I froze the account, changed the name to Pay Without Me. Felt poetic. That's when the group chat blew up. Tom, you didn't have to be dramatic. Brielle sent a laughing gif and a screenshot of the failed transaction. Chase. Are you really going to be this petty, Diane? It was just for the holidays. You're still part of this family whether you like it or not. I replied once. Okay. And I left the chat. So I'm writing this from my couch right now. Because just a few hours ago, no warning, Diane and Tom showed up at my apartment. With Brielle. Just walked in. I hadn't locked the bottom door. Rookie move. Alana and I were coming back from takeout. She froze when she saw them. Tom was flipping through my photo album like it was a goddamn dentist's office magazine. Diane stood like she owned the place, arms crossed, clipboard in hand. Brielle had kicked her shoes off, was lounging like it was her place. We needed to talk, Diane said all casual. I didn't yell. I didn't even blink. You tried to steal from me, I said. Why are you here? You've changed, Tom replied, ever since you started dating her. Didn't even have the decency to say Alana's name. Alana stayed by the door, quiet, but alert. We were here before her, Diane said. We'll be here after. Oh, really? That was it. I told them to leave. Tom scoffed. Diane guilt-tripped. Brielle mumbled something about drama queen. I opened the door and didn't say a word. Diane turned as she left. You're going to regret this. I locked the door behind them. Just stood there. hands shaking. Alana hugged me and whispered, "That's not normal." I whispered back, "I know. Jean is my godmother, my mom's childhood best friend. She walked away from Diane and Tom over a decade ago. I never asked why. Tonight I'm asking, because now it's war." I saw the screenshots, Jean said, her voice like a match striking. "And trust me, this is not new. Your mom went through the same thing with them." I didn't even finish dinner. My stomach was still in knots from seeing them in my apartment like they owned it. I called Jean, first time in over a year. "I was wondering when you'd call," she said. That's when I broke. Like ugly broke. I just unloaded. The brunch, the bank card, the literal break-in. Alana just sat next to me on the couch holding my hand. I felt like I was 12 again. Helpless, cornered, exhausted. Jean listened. Then she said, "Your mom warned me this might happen someday." And just like that, I knew I wasn't crazy. See, my mom wasn't naive. She knew Diane was manipulative. She told me once I only trust 2 people with my money, you and Jean. I thought she was being dramatic. Turns out she was just being cautious. Jean explained everything. Apparently years ago, Diane and Tom had borrowed 10 grand from my mom to fix a roof. Never paid her back. Instead, they went on a Caribbean cruise. Told everyone Jean was lying when she brought it up. Said she had memory issues. Gaslit the entire family. That's when I cut them off, Jean said. But I kept watching you. I figured eventually they'd come for you. I couldn't sleep. By sunrise, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to play defense anymore. Jean had a friend in compliance law, Clara. She specializes in family financial entanglements, aka exactly this bullshit. We talked that morning. Clara was calm, sharp, no nonsense. I handed over screenshots of the attempted withdrawal, my mom's original will, emails from Diane guilt-tripping me for cash, a Venmo receipt from Brielle labeled rent that lined up exactly with her Instagram story of a Vegas pool party. Clara looked at everything and said, "Let's cut them off clean, legally. Let's go." By noon, Clara had already filed the paperwork to sever all remaining financial ties. I closed the trust access, removed them from all insurance and contact lists, froze any account that had their name on it, even the shared Netflix they never paid for. Petty sure. Satisfying, also, yes. Changed every password, every PIN. Then I took a screenshot of the closed balance and dropped it into the family group chat. No words, just the image. Tom replied, "What is this?" Brielle sent, "Is this a joke?" I didn't reply. Silence can be louder than shouting. Jean had been saving receipts, like literal receipts. Photos, bank transfers, old email. She had a picture from 2019 Tom and Diane in Aruba. Cocktails poolside luxury suite. The same month they told me they couldn't afford heating and asked for help paying Chase's tuition. I posted the photo on Facebook. Caption, "Funny how the people calling you selfish are usually the ones spending your money." Didn't tag anyone. Didn't need to. It exploded. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years messaged me. "Dude, I had no idea. Wait, they said you were broke. That's messed up." One of Diane's sisters called me disrespectful. Whatever. Brielle posted a vague story. Some people can't handle being called out, so they burned down the family tree. Chase sent a voice note that started with, "You think you're better than us now," and ended with something about forgiveness. I didn't bother decoding. Tom didn't say anything. But Diane texted Alana. She sent Alana a private message. "He wasn't like this before you. You poisoned him. Read it, reread it." Alana showed it to me without saying a word. My jaw clenched so hard it clicked. It wasn't just manipulation anymore. It was personal, deliberate, desperate. But Alana, she didn't flinch. She just looked at me and said, "End it, whatever you have to do." And just like that, I knew I had permission. Not just from her, but from myself. I don't care if they call me dramatic, petty, ungrateful. This isn't about revenge anymore, it's about freedom. I'm not living with half-locked doors, emotional debt, and silence in place of peace. I'm not cleaning up after their lies anymore. Tomorrow, I'm meeting Clara again. We're filing for a restraining order. We're reporting the attempted fraud. And I'm changing the locks. Because I don't just want them out of my life. I want them to know they can't come back. Ever. "You're seriously filing a restraining order." Clara didn't blink. "Sean, they trespassed. They tried to steal from you. That's not family drama. That's criminal." So I met Clara again. She was waiting with a folder so thick it looked like a college thesis. It had tabs, highlights, even post-it flags. I swear it practically radiated revenge energy. Inside, a timeline of financial manipulation. Photos from Jean, screenshots from WhatsApp, the text Diane sent Alana Clara's words. That's intimidation. Then she handed me the official docs. Restraining order temporary pending full approval. Fraud report filed. Trespassing complaint submitted to my landlord. Clara was calm. I wasn't. My hands were sweating, but I signed everything. And just like that, they weren't just bad family. They were a legal liability. I told my landlord about the trespassing incident. His face went pale. They were in your apartment. Yep, just walked in. No apology, no boundaries. He didn't ask for details. He just nodded and said, "We're changing the locks on us. I'll throw in a free camera. Never seen anything like this." Weirdest part, he apologized. Said in 10 years of renting, he's never dealt with something so twisted. Same bro, I thought we were done. Thought that was it. Nope. At 5:47 p.m. I got the email. Subject line notice of concern. Immediate acknowledgement required. I clicked it so fast my trackpad squeaked. It was from the school board. Someone anonymous had submitted a formal complaint that I was emotionally unstable and creating a hostile environment for students. No specific incidents, just vague phrases. Erratic behavior. Depressed disposition. Tension due to personal relationship visible to minors. Alana was named without being named. His live-in partner may be a source of conflict. Are you kidding me? I felt the blood drain from my face. I didn't even get mad at first. I just went numb. Because I knew who it was. Clara picked up on the second ring. I forwarded the email. "I've seen this before," she said. "They're trying to ruin you where it hurts most." And then she said something that made me sit up. "We can trace the IP." Turns out metadata isn't just for nerds, it's for justice. Clara's team pulled the email metadata, traced the IP address. Wanna guess where it came from? Brielle's college dorm. No VPN, no burner. She literally emailed the school board from campus Wi-Fi. Smooth move genius. Clara contacted the school board immediately. They dropped the complaint within the hour. Closed the file. No further action. I forwarded the dismissal email to Brielle. No message, just the doc. 10 minutes later, she blocked me. Guess I hit a nerve. I didn't go to work today. The district gave me a wellness day with pay. Apparently the principal saw the email too. Her words, "Total trash, we've got your back." I didn't know whether to cry or laugh, so I just went home. Alana brought tacos. We sat on the balcony, said nothing, just let the sun go down and tried to breathe. I looked at her and said, "I feel like I'm finally out of the house." She nodded. "You are." And for once, I actually believed it. But of course, because we can't have peace without one final twist, they showed up. Again. Tom, Diane, and someone new. Brian, if you're lucky enough not to know him. Let me introduce you Tom's little brother. Think frat boy energy mixed with bad debt and even worse opinions. He stood there like a bouncer at a dive bar, sunglasses on at 7 p.m. Arms crossed like he had authority. He didn't. Diane tried the "We Come in Peace" act. "We canceled the trip, we want you back, let's start fresh." Tom added, "This is about family. We just want to move forward." Brian, "You embarrassed us with that post. You went too far." I almost laughed. Too far was you trying to empty my account. Diane looked tired. No makeup, hair flat, voice smaller than usual. But I'd seen that face before. It wasn't remorse. It was regret that her manipulation didn't work. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just said, "If you show up here again, I will file charges. This isn't a warning. This is a promise." Brian scoffed. "Diane." Her final card was pity. "You're not the same person anymore, Sean." And she said it like it was a bad thing, but she was right. I'm not, because now I'm done. They said I was petty. I told Alana staring at my laptop. But they underestimated how organized a pissed-off counselor can be. It started with one message. That's it. I opened the extended family group chat. The big one. Aunt's cousins even, that uncle who only shows up to funerals and free dinners. I posted a screenshot of the account Diane tried to drain. No caption, just raw proof. Then I attached the restraining order filing, the school board complaint, and the email headers that trace back to Brielle. Screenshots of Brielle's fake Venmo requests, vacation photos from Aruba, date stamped. Texts from Diane asking for grocery money while posting poolside selfies. And finally, a short message from Jean that said, "I watched this family use guilt as currency for decades. Sean isn't dramatic. He's breaking the cycle." Then I muted the chat. I didn't stick around for the show, but the show came anyway. You'd think I had dropped a bomb in a quiet town. Cousin Alyssa messaged, "Dude, is this all real?" Cousin Devin. I always thought Diane was kind of off, but damn. Even Uncle Richie, who literally skipped my graduation, texted, "I don't blame you, this is disgusting." But not everyone reacted that way. Diane didn't message me. She messaged Alana again. "You've poisoned him. He wasn't like this before you. I hope you're happy." That was the moment I knew they were out of ammo. When someone attacks your partner after losing control of you, that's their final move. Blame, divide, rewrite history. Alana showed me the message, didn't flinch. She just said, "Block her, all of them, for real this time." I did. No last word, no emotional finale. Just block, black and white filter, sad music, fake tears. Sometimes people twist your love into weapons. And that's trauma. Girl. You tried to ruin my career from a Starbucks Wi-Fi. Chase posted a gym selfie with the caption, "Strong enough to carry the weight of fake relatives." No bro, just strong enough to carry a six-pack of entitlement. Tom didn't post. Diane posted a Bible quote. Classic. For the first time in years, my phone didn't buzz with guilt. No requests for help, no vague "we miss you" texts. Just silence, and it was glorious. I went to work like normal. My students had no idea the emotional trench war I'd just been through. One of them handed me a crayon drawing that said Mr. S is the best counselor. I nearly teared up in front of the smartboard, because in their eyes, I was still whole. We found a new apartment. It's smaller, but the walls feel clean. No ghosts, no stress. There's a park nearby. Alana loves the little balcony. I've got space for my books. We're going to get a dog someday. Jean helped us move. Didn't say much. Just packed, lifted, and smiled. When we handed in the keys to my old place, she hugged me and whispered, "That apartment was your first step away from them. This one is your first step toward you." I didn't say anything back. I couldn't. I just held on a little longer. I didn't leave it. I deleted it. Gone. I don't need updates on Diane's next guilt recipe or Brielle's 4th business launch this year. A few cousins reached out privately, said they wanted to stay close. I didn't respond. Not out of spite, out of peace. I'm not responsible for cleaning up after the mess they made anymore. We framed the student's crayon drawing and hung it in the hallway, next to our front door, a little crooked. It says Mr. S is the best, and under it, Alana added a post-it note, "You really are." Sometimes I just stand there and stare at it, not because I need reassurance, but because it reminds me of one simple, quiet truth. I am not what they said I was. Not pass out from exhaustion sleep, not fall asleep over email sleep. Just sleep, real slow healing sleep. No buzzing phones, no emotional whiplash, no waiting for the next shoe to drop. Just me. In a bed I paid for, in a space I chose, with someone I love. And for the first time, I didn't dream of defending myself. "You know, you're gonna be a great dad someday, right?" Alana said it casually, like she wasn't handing me a truth I didn't even know I needed. That's when I knew the storm wasn't just over. It cleared the way. No dramatic sunrise, no big reveal, just quiet. It took time to trust it. To trust silence that wasn't just a pause before another attack. At first, I kept checking my email like some trauma reflex. But there was nothing, not a single new message from Diane, Brielle, or Tom. The silence wasn't empty. It was clean. Every day started to feel more like mine. I worked. I laughed. I caught up with friends I hadn't texted back in months because I was always in some kind of emotional crisis. We bought a plant, named him Todd. He's somehow still alive. I went back to work full-time. The principal gave me a light caseload the first few weeks. My coworkers didn't ask questions, just covered for me. And the kids, they kept me grounded. One morning, a student walked into my office, dropped into the chair, and said, "Mr. S, my brother called me annoying. Am I annoying?" I looked at him and laughed. Everyone's annoying. It's what makes us human. He smiled like I'd said something profound, and I realized I'd stopped carrying that heaviness around. My job wasn't my hiding place anymore. It was just my job, and I loved it again. Yeah, I know, on the nose. But he's perfect. Rescue mutt, big paws, bigger heart. He follows me around like I'm the sun. Sometimes I sit on the floor with him while Alana works on the couch and just think, this is it. This is my life now. No manipulation, no guilt tripping, no checking over my shoulder waiting for the next family ambush. Just life. We talk on Sundays, sometimes about bills, sometimes about nothing. Last week she sent me a letter, like a real letter, with stamps and everything. Inside was a photo I'd never seen before me at 5, holding my mom's hand at a beach. Probably canon. We were both smiling, like we didn't know what was coming. Jean wrote under it, "She always believed you'd find your way back to joy." I sat on the floor and stared at that photo for a long time. Because she was right, I had. Sometimes I wonder what Diane says now. To the rest of the family, to herself. I wonder if Brielle still spins the narrative online, or if Tom pretends he did everything he could. And maybe they believe that. But me, I'm done explaining. There's peace in not defending yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. There's power in just living. The restraining order was officially granted. Permanent. Clara sent me the notice with a little note that said, "You protected yourself, that matters." I pinned it to the inside of our kitchen cabinet, right next to Todd the plant. It's not a trophy. It's a reminder, not of what they did, but of what I did. It came from a cousin, Alyssa. "Hey, just wanted to say I'm proud of you. I didn't get it before, but I do now." I didn't reply. Not because I don't appreciate it, but because I don't need it anymore. The validation I wanted for so long, I gave it to myself. Pizza box open, wine in hand, dog snoring by my feet. The stars are just barely visible above the streetlight glow. Alana leans her head on my shoulder and whispers, "You really made it out." I nod. But what I really want to say is, no, I didn't just make it out. I chose to. If you've ever been made to feel like the villain for walking away, if they said you were ungrateful, dramatic, selfish, let me say this. You don't owe anyone your peace just because you share blood. You're allowed to leave. You're allowed to protect your space. You're allowed to start over even if they never understand why. And when you do, you'll sleep deeper, breathe easier. And one day, without even noticing, you'll look around and realize you made a life they can't touch. Story 2. I received a message after sending $10,000 to pay for my sister's baby shower. "You're not welcome. Send a present, please. You can't buy your way into our family," my mother added. I simply grinned, terminated the lease on her new SUV, and took my name out of the trust fund. When they arrived at my door and banged on the glass for me, my phone had blown by morning. Like a freight train, that moment struck. My sister Sarah's baby shower was the beginning of it all. The golden kid has always been Sarah. My parents showered her with affection, as if she were hanging stars. Conversely, I found myself assuming the position of the dependable elder brother, the one who must constantly maintain his composure so that the others may afford to fail. When my brother became addicted to sports betting while in college, I was the one who helped him get out of debt. When Dad's company failed, I paid our parents' mortgage for 6 months. Yes, I even contributed to the expensive wedding of Sarah, who looked like a bridezilla in a tiara. I knew what to expect when my mother contacted me last month, her voice brimming with well-practiced appreciation. "Robert, you aware that Sarah's baby shower is approaching? She's determined to make it unique. How much does this mean to her?" I reclined in my seat and gazed at the stack of spreadsheets on my desk. I was aware of the direction this talk was taking. I had been duped too many times by my family's ability to use emotional guilt as pressure to get money. However, I still responded, "Okay, just let me know what you need." I sent $10,000 2 days later to pay for the venue, the catering, and whatever else Sarah thought would be needed to win over her yoga mom pals. I reasoned that it would bring me some serenity, perhaps a tiny bit of gratitude. It was my sister's first child after all. This was meant to be a family occasion, but Sarah sent me a message 2 days after the transfer. "Hello, I appreciate your contribution. I wanted to inform you that you are not invited since we are keeping it small. Send a present, please." It took me 2 readings. It had the feel of a smack. I began composing a reply, but my phone buzzed once more before I could send it. It was my mother. "You really can't buy your way into this family, Robert." My blood felt like ice as I sat there looking at my phone. Even though that was such a casual and cutting statement, it really got to me. For years, I had been the one supporting them. I had covered their errors, paid for their crises, and allowed them to treat me badly in the hopes that they would eventually see how valuable I am. However, it was at this point that I recognized they would never. I leaned back, closed my laptop, and inhaled deeply. Something changed inside of me. I wasn't upset. Not at all. I had just finished. I launched my banking app and deleted my name from the trust fund I had created for Sarah's unborn child, which I intended to begin contributing to the following month. After that, I canceled the lease on the brand new SUV my mom had been driving by calling the dealership. Since she pledged to make the payments and her credit was terrible, I co-signed for it. Well, those assurances were now meaningless. I continued after that. In order to sell the lake cottage that my parents like to hire out every summer without asking, I phoned my lawyer. They would bring their friends and ruin the place as if it were a beach rental. They never spent $1 maintaining it. I never even bothered to refuel the grill's propane tank. At last, I'd had enough. I took a seat back and allowed the quiet to envelop me. I didn't bother to reply to their SMS. I simply left everything up in the air. The following morning, my phone blew up. Voicemails become more urgent, angry texts and missed calls. After that, I was enjoying my coffee when my front door banged loudly. I sat back in my chair, took another sip, and grinned. Through the glass panel next to my front door, I could see my mother and sister. While my mom's expression was a mixture of worry and indignation, Sarah's arms were crossed and she was clearly fuming. I partly thought they were going to bust through like a pair of suburban zombies since they were banging on the glass so hard. After completing my coffee, I let them stew for a minute before idly approaching and opening the door. What the devil is happening? Robert Sarah pushed by me and into the foyer with a snap. My mom trailed after, her eyes wild and cheeks flushed, as if she had just finished a race. What are you saying? Leaning against the wall and trying to seem vaguely interested, I inquired. Sarah gestured at me with her phone. You canceled the SUV lease, but why I was halfway to my appointment when the screen said unauthorized use and the engine shut off? Like I'm a robber of some sort. I had to suppress my laughter by biting my tongue. The high-end versions have such small feature as a benefit. The remote was turned off. Mom's voice jumped sharply. And why is there nothing in the trust fund? Robert, you promised to create a fund for the child. That was what we depended on. It was there. The truth was seeping to the surface. They wanted me more than just to be there. I was their golden goose and their safety net. And it had been more painful than they had anticipated to cut them off. I didn't change my tone. I'm not truly a member of this family, as you both have made apparent. I'm not welcome here. I decided it was time to cease playing the role of your personal bank. Sarah's cheeks flushed, and she gave my mother a terrified look. It resembled two animals in a corner silently arguing over who would bite first. My mother folded her arms and muttered, "You're being dramatic. Family members support one another. We do that." I gave a little chuckle. Really? Because as far as I'm aware, family does not bar you from important life events. Immediately after stealing $10,000 from you. To quarrel, they both opened their lips. However, I raised a hand. Keep it. I've had enough of being the doormat. I can't buy my way into this family, you remarked. All right. I'm not going to try. I watched as it dawned on me. They were no longer able to influence me. No hidden guilt to play with. No favors to be twisted. I felt amazing that I was back in charge. Sarah spat out after a lengthy, uncomfortable quiet. All right, perhaps we don't need you at all if you wish to behave in this manner. I simply shrugged. Perhaps you don't. We'll have to find out. They slammed the door behind them and rushed out. Through the glass, I saw them huddled together on the driveway, still fighting while fumbling with their phones. Most likely attempting to contact my brother or father to determine their next course of action. I pivoted. I felt something that I hadn't felt in years as I looked about my peaceful, tidy house. Part. I didn't realize how badly they would fall apart without my help. However, I was more than happy to witness that spectacle from a distance. The consequences struck more quickly than I anticipated. By week's end, I began to hear from other family members who had previously avoided the issue, but were now genuinely curious about my side of the tale. My dad left me a voicemail. My cousin left me a mysterious message, and my aunt texted me. His voice was shaky and strained. Give me a call back when you have this, Robert. Your mother told me some worrying things. We must speak. I paid them all no attention. I anticipated what would happen. My mother and Sarah weren't only angry. They were in a panic. Without my financial assistance, their entire deck of cards was beginning to sway. For years, I had been their unseen patron, filling in the gaps in their idyllic suburban facade. Their lives would fall apart fast without me. Then one morning, my brother Jake called me. I thought about leaving it on voicemail, but my curiosity won out. He tried to be informal when he said, "Hey, man," but I could detect the edge in his voice. "I recently learned about the trust fund in the SUV. Sarah and Mom are going crazy." "What's happening?" I hesitated, carefully selecting my words. "What's happening is that I'm sick of being treated like a walking cash register. I yanked the plug because they pushed me too far. It's as easy as that." The other end remained silent for a long time. Jake was trying to decide which side to take, and I could just hear the wheels spinning in his mind. He was the quintessential fence-sitter, constantly attempting to maintain his good standing with others. "Look," he replied at last, "I understand, but they are what they are. Most likely you simply misinterpreted it. Man, they didn't intend to leave you out. You know, it's just family." I let out a brief, sour laugh. "Yes, family. They constantly use it as an excuse, don't they? Family members support one another. Perhaps for once people should learn how to assist themselves." Jake let out a sigh, obviously understanding that he couldn't convince me to change my mind. "Okay. However, you are aware that this will blow out, aren't you? You are essentially destroying all of the family's bridges." I looked out the window at my comm and grinned. The street is quiet. Then I suppose a new beginning is in order. I made myself another cup of coffee, hung up, and went to my office. I felt lighter than I had in years, and I had a lot of work to catch up on. Then, however, the texts began to arrive once again. They weren't only Sarah and my mother's irate tirades this time. I was accused by my aunt of being ungrateful and of leaving the family. Suddenly, my cousin, who I hadn't spoken to in more than a year, wanted to talk things out. Even my father. Usually, we avoided becoming involved in these messes. Tried to use guilt to get me to come. Then Sarah's husband Mike called, which was the real kicker. "Robert, hello. I don't want to interfere, but you should think again about this. My parents are considering intervening to aid Sarah, who is in complete chaos. Man, this is getting nasty." I reclined in my chair and let his words to linger in my mind. The speed at which they realized the ship was sinking and began to scramble like a pack of rats was astounding. "Mike," calmly I said, "maybe we wouldn't be in this predicament if they treated me like family rather than a walking pocketbook. I am no longer their fallback option." My bluntness caught him off surprise, and he stuttered a little before attempting one more tactic. "Don't do this to your niece or nephew Guy. Consider the infant." It nearly made me chuckle. They had insulted me and stolen my money. They now desired to use the family card. "I apologize, Mike." My voice was flat as I spoke. No longer my concern. I blocked his phone after hanging up. My phone rang once again when I was sitting on my back porch that evening, watching the sunset behind the trees. My mother texted me this time. "You're being unkind. This is something you'll regret. Family, whether you like it or not, always comes back together." I read it twice. I had a brief flashback to the old guilt they used to inflict on my heart before deleting it without answering. The storm had only just started, and I sensed that things were about to grow much messier. I began to see the gaps in their well-planned lives a week after I cut them off. It took very little time. Mike, Sarah's husband, was the first obvious indication. I learned from a common friend that he had been taking on additional shifts at his company despite his keep-out-of-it rhetoric. He was the type of person who embraced the Instagram family aesthetic, expensive trips, fancy cars, and well-staged family portraits, but without my silent approval. His financial situation appeared to be beginning to deteriorate. My mother came next. Late one evening, I received a call from my father. I figured it had to be serious because he never phoned. "Listen to me, Robert," he urged in a tremulous voice. "Your mom is not doing well. In an attempt to make things better, she has started contacting individuals. You've been aloof and chilly, and I'm just curious if this is how you truly want things to proceed," she added. I inhaled deeply, allowing the stillness to linger for a while. The quieter one had always been my dad, the consistent yet aloof presence in our life. Although he didn't often participate in the drama, I knew my mother had most likely pulled him in by making up a tearful tale about how I had left them. "Dad, she went too far. She told me I couldn't buy my way into this family." I eventually responded, "I'm following her counsel, though." I could just hear him massaging his temples as he hesitated, presumably attempting to piece together how things had gone so wrong. "See, I understand. You don't have to go nuclear with your mother, even though she might be challenging. Son, this is family." Once more, there it was, the same old line, similar to a broken record. With a firm voice, I said, "Dad, I'm not going nuclear. I've had enough of people taking advantage of me. Jake's gambling debts, your mortgage, Sarah's wedding, and more vacations than I can remember have all been covered by me. When does it end?" For that, he had no response, just a lengthy sigh of exhaustion. "Okay. All I can hope is that you are aware of what you are doing." I hung up with an odd mixture of remorse and relief. Although I didn't want to cause resentment, I also didn't want to be drawn back into their financial and emotional turmoil. My accountant sent me an email 2 days later. Although it was a standard update, I was intrigued by one sentence. "We found recent credit queries." I reviewed the information after logging into my account. As it turned out, Sarah and my mother had attempted to use my information to open additional credit accounts. Anger sprang out in me, but it quickly subsided into something more subdued, sharper. I filed a report, froze my credit, and phoned my bank. Then, just to be safe, I sent my lawyer a brief email. Even though I anticipated that the consequences would be immediate, I was nonetheless unprepared for what transpired. My phone rang the very next morning. Even though I didn't identify the number, I took it up. "Hi there. Is this Robert?" As if reading from a script, the voice on the other end inquired. "This is the local police department's Officer Ramirez. We need to talk to you about a possible identity theft case." Before I understood what this was about, I felt my pulse quicken. My mother and Sarah had overplayed their hand. My thoughts were already racing over the possibilities when I said, "Of course, officer. I'd be glad to assist." A peculiar, almost blissful calmness descended upon me as I hung up. I had no control over the repercussions since they had gone too far. I was seated in a tiny antiseptic conference room at the local police station 2 days after Officer Ramirez called. The fluorescent lights flickered and buzzed softly overhead, and the walls were painted a drab gray. The cop on the other side of me was young, perhaps in his mid-30s, with a well-groomed mustache and weary eyes that said he had witnessed far more drama than he had ever wished to. He pointed to a heavy manila folder across the table and said, "All right, Mr. Roberts. Numerous allegations of attempted credit theft involving your identity have reached us. Just a few elements need to be confirmed." I looked down at the pile of papers as I leaned forward. A printed email that I recognized from my own inbox sat on top. My bank scam warning. Because of the freeze I imposed, they were unable to obtain 2 additional lines of credit. It appears that your mother and sister tried to apply for these accounts using your social security number. Through the pages, the cop kept turning. Normally, this would be seen as a family quarrel, but considering the sums involved, it becomes a criminal. I forced myself to maintain a composed appearance, despite the gradual frigid wrath that was swelling inside my chest. "I understand." My voice was steady as I spoke. "What follows?" The cop leaned back in his chair and rubbed his chin. "That's up to you then. If you'd want to file charges, things might get serious. It might destroy your family." As I gazed at the folder, memories of years of unpaid bills, hurtful remarks, and emotional blackmail came flooding back. I reflected on how they had rapidly turned on me the moment I stopped supporting them, and how they had attempted to blame me for all I had done for them. "I get it. Finally filed the charges," I said. Not even blinking did the cop. He simply passed a paperwork over the table and nodded. "Okay, we'll take care of the rest after you sign this declaration." I put my signature there. I can feel the burden of years of bitterness leaving my shoulders. My phone buzzed in my pocket as I walked out of the station. Jake had texted me about it. "Robert, what the devil? Sarah and Mom just phoned me crying. You're attempting to get them arrested," they said. "What's the matter with you?" I didn't answer. My lawyer phoned 2 days later. His voice had a tone I had never heard before, a cautious approval of sorts. The cops have just called me Robert. Your mother and sister apparently attempted to create credit accounts under your name. To be honest, I didn't anticipate this. I said neither did I. But I secretly knew that perhaps I ought to have. He paused for a second. This might become messy, you know. They may attempt to thwart this, sully your reputation, or even threaten to file a countersuit. It nearly made me chuckle. Permit them. Every bridge has already been burnt. I'm simply formally announcing it. After hanging up, I reclined in my chair and gazed out my office window at the clear blue sky. In a long time, for the first time, I was really liberated. I received a certified letter in the mail a week later. It came from Mike Sarah's husband, a last-ditch effort to resolve things amicably. In addition to offering to pay back the $10,000 from the baby shower and replace the damages, he also promised to permanently exclude my mom from my money if I dropped the allegations. Without thinking, I threw the note in the garbage. They had already made their decisions. It was time for them to face the repercussions. My phone rang 2 days after I threw Mike's letter in the garbage. I looked at the display. It was my father. My thumb lingered over the refused button as I paused. I sighed nevertheless and responded, "Robert?" His voice was a deep, tired murmur. "We must speak. This is still family. Even if I am aware that things have gotten out of control, this must be able to be fixed." Leaning back, I saw the sun slicing thin, dazzling slashes over my desk and through the blinds. I had to decide what to do. I could tell him that I was sick of being their doormat, the same spiel I had given Jake. I could also simply let him speak. I guess there was some residual sense of obligation that led me to choose the latter. "Proceed." I spoke in a neutral tone. He seemed more worn out than irate when he replied, "Your mother is a mess." "Robert, she's afraid. This is the first time she has ever gotten in trouble like this." She pondered. "She probably assumed you wouldn't go this far. She didn't believe that charges would be brought against you." I had a brief moment of regret, but I soon put it out of my mind. I wasn't going to let her shame me back into submission because she had gone too far. Dad, she took my identity. I spoke aggressively. Both her and Sarah. This goes beyond a few wounded sentiments. They attempted to create many credit lines in my name. They were guilty of a crime. A lengthy pause ensued. He was scratching his temples like he often did when he was trapped, and I could practically hear it. I'm not suggesting that what they did was correct, mind you, but you can't treat your family like way. They are in a grave situation. They're afraid since Sarah's kid is expected shortly. Without you, they have no idea how to deal with this. I felt the usual pressure of their expectations as I closed my eyes. The story was the same every time. Even though it destroyed me, I had to make all the repairs tidy up their mess and ensure that their lives continued to go on. "I apologize, Father." My voice was steady as I spoke. "However, I'm finished. They made their decisions. They may now accept the repercussions." I hung up before he could argue. I didn't see the backlash coming so quickly. A few days later, Sarah and my mother were officially charged. Through family rumors, I learned that they had both been charged with criminal fraud. All of their brunch pictures and postings about their growing baby bumps from their formerly well-manicured social media accounts were vanished. My aunt sent me an angry email blaming me of destroying Sarah's life and destroying this family. I didn't even try to answer. Then came the actual blow. The house I saved out of foreclosure years ago, my parents' house, was put back up for sale. It seems like my mother overextended herself expecting me to fill up the holes. The bank was now encroaching. Jake made one more attempt to persuade me to change my mind. He arrived at my office without warning, appearing a touch desperate and gaunt. He leaned over my desk, his hands holding the edge as if he may topple over, and shouted, "Man, you can't do this. Mom is being ruined by you. The house is being lost by her. Sarah is about to have a breakdown. Your actions are ruining this family. I simply stared at him, experiencing an odd, cold serenity. "No, Jake," I muttered. "When they determined that my only worth was my money account, they killed this family." For a time he remained there, his mouth clenched as if he wanted to protest, but was at a loss for words. He turned and left without saying anything more, shutting the door of my office behind him. The same lake cottage that they had regarded as a family getaway, always leaving a mess and never bothering to thank me for the maintenance, was sold by me a month later. I took a lengthy, well-earned trip to the Maldives with the money I made from the sale, which brought in a good profit. I felt something I hadn't felt in years as I sat on a sun-drenched beach with a cool drink in my hand and the ocean in front of me. Liberty. At last, I was free of their demands, their guilt trips, and their incessant need for money. I felt lighter than I have in decades after cutting the last of the threads. After returning, I relocated to a new city near folks who genuinely cared about me. I terminated the final shared accounts, changed my phone, and banned my family on all platforms. For the first time in a long time, it was over. I had the feeling that I could breathe. Story 3. For the third consecutive year, they failed to attend my birthday. My father emailed me a PDF bill for my brother's birthday celebration a week later. $2,200. Even here, we parted ways. I sent a message along with $1. "I'm not on board." I then canceled all of the credit cards and streaming accounts. They began to report fraud in a panic. I got a call from the bank. "They missed my birthday," I remarked with a giggle. "But don't forget to watch Netflix that evening." I realized then that it wasn't only carelessness, something colder. It was my 28th birthday. Cake and candles were not what I had anticipated. Just a phone call. Dinner, perhaps. I received quiet instead. My parents didn't text me at all. My sister didn't say anything. In a group conversation, not even a lazy thumbs up emoji. I didn't have any major plans. A little gathering in my backyard. Tyler, my cousin, brought ribs. A few of buddies arrived with drinks. We engaged in card games, had music playing. I kept looking at my phone like a fool waiting, but other than that, it was quite good. Even if it was hours late, my mother would always text me something. Not this time, though. "Where is your family?" inquired Tyler. "They must have had other ideas," I responded. He looked at me. I choose to disregard it. I discovered their other intentions later that evening while perusing Instagram. At a vineyard in the north, my mother, sister, and aunt were all tagged. Tasting of wine, a trip to the spa, quality time with my girls is a caption for a selfie. On the afternoon of my birthday, they posted, "Don't bring me up." For longer than I would like to confess, I gazed at that picture. Not because I was taken aback. It wasn't the first time that this happened. It was obvious. I was always there for them when they needed something. Regarding her auto insurance, my sister needed assistance. I talked about it. Dad's hours were slashed, according to Mom. Their phone bill was paid by me. I have all of them on my streaming schedule. You name it, Hulu, Netflix, Prime. In an emergency, I would even permit them to use a credit card that is in my name. As it happens, the emergency was quite concerned about me. I made the decision to stop that evening. No guilt trip and no speech. Just take action. I started by going into each streaming account, changing the passwords, and signing out of every device. All of them. Netflix, Amazon Prime, Spotify, Disney Plus, and HBO Max. Lost. I looked over each person's login history. Yes. On the evening of my birthday, they were all still in use. Tyler and I were enjoying a beer in my garden, as I pretended not to notice that my phone was dead silent. They were using my money to watch movies. Next, I looked at the credit card. It had been used twice by my sister for Postmates. It had been used by my parents to buy food. The bargain wasn't that. The card was frozen by me. After that, I closed it out and phoned the provider. I used my personal funds to settle the outstanding sum. Too costly, yes. Is it worthwhile? Of course. The texts arrived the following day. Is Netflix down for my sister? Mom, your father's card isn't functioning. Could you look at it? I didn't answer. The following one was a bit more frantic. Again, Mom, The card continues dropping while we are at the store. What's happening? Then the bank called. Beware of fraud. Unauthorized behavior was reported, they stated. Asked whether the account was frozen. Yes, I did, I replied. It's not fraud either. Simply putting an end to those who can only tolerate quiet on the other end. The bank representative was at a loss for words. In years, for the first time. I had a sense of control. Not upset, just got done. I was never considered family by them, not at all. I was an ATM in disguise. There was no need for them to consider. I wasn't done though. This was only the first step. I wanted them to experience the gradual disintegration and unease that comes with losing the lifeline they took for granted. If everything ended with a single cut, it wouldn't learn anything. No, this would be difficult and slow. It wasn't until their phones quit working that the true fear began. Because of the money, they could disregard the situation, cease to be bothersome, and became unfathomable for them. They might defend this birthday. However, cutting off their ties to the world quickly caught their interest. I had begun with the credit cards and accounts. They took note. Yes, however, they continued to believe it was only transitory. They thought that, as usual, I would cool off, feel bad, and return everything. That's what I did before. Do not disturb the quiet. Pay the bills. Let them act as though we were a typical family. The collapse started when their phones, really died. The principal account holder was still me. All 5 lines of the family plan were in my name. Lost. I signed in, canceled the rest, and reduced it to simply my number. Completed in 15 minutes. Less expensive for me. Devastating to them. From somewhere, my sister used Wi-Fi to send me a Facebook message. She didn't greet me, just jumped right in. You actually disconnected our phones. Have you gone insane? I didn't respond. Simply read the notice, then exit the application. That evening, my mother wrote a panicked email. Real email, as if the headline was "Urgent Call Me" from 2005. She said in it that they had no means of communication. They were unable to access any websites. They couldn't get vital services. The hardest part was that they felt deserted, left behind. They wanted me to feel awful for not paying their bills. The same folks who in similar white robes ignored my birthday while drinking wine and smiling. That word stayed with me. I reflected on how frequently I had to cancel arrangements to take my mom to appointments, and how I had to pay for my dad's insurance when he fell behind. After every breakup, I would let my sister to collapse on my couch. No inquiries were made. I continued to give and give. They also handled it as if it were background noise. Then they dared to declare themselves desolate. My dad contacted me again that evening. I responded only to listen to his response. He didn't inquire about my health. They made no apologies. He plunged right in. Mike, what the devil is happening? Why are you behaving this way? I stopped acting. I said that's the situation. I was being theatrical, he said. That I ought to have spoken to them directly if I had an issue, rather than using nuclear power. And that's when I finally understood. They believed they had done nothing improper. They really thought I was the issue, that I was being too sensitive, behaving like a walking wall, and even missing my birthday. It was only family matters. They failed to grasp it. No, they would not. I leaned into it then. I compiled a list of all the things I had been managing or helping with, including ride-sharing credits, shared cloud storage subscriptions, Amazon household and food delivery accounts. Everything is gone. Without their recognizing it, I touched every nook and cranny of the digital comfort they had become accustomed to. The worst one for them then arrived. I removed them from my Prime membership. No more shipment in 2 days. No more free films. No more savings. Do you believe I set off a country club's fire alarm? My Uncle James called it that moment. He is one of the few members of the family that genuinely earns his wealth. Drama is not to the old school guy's taste. I nearly didn't answer when I saw his name on the caller ID. However, I did. He didn't shout, didn't instruct me to make repairs. I only mentioned that I was aware of the situation. Your mother says you've gone crazy. I wanted to know his opinion. After a little period of silence, he continued. I believe you've finally drawn a line that they should have anticipated 10 years ago. I was completely stopped by that. I filled him in on everything, including the spa vacation, the birthday, and their attempt to defraud me after I reported their card as fraudulent. He didn't talk over you, simply listen. Then he added, just make sure that you're not destroying them, but waking them up. I wasn't sure myself, so I didn't respond straight immediately. I had no desire for vengeance. Not quite. I wanted them to know what it was like to be ignored, to be left out of the important parts, and asked to pay for the rest. However, the more I dug, the more I understood that perhaps they would never comprehend. Perhaps this had nothing to do with awakening them. Perhaps it was about waking up at last. It was calm the next week. Quiet, but not tranquil. The moment just before a storm arrives. I assumed they were getting together and attempting to devise a plan to use guilt to get me to undo everything. It always worked that way in the past. To keep the money coming in there was a mixture of phony concern, quiet, and then a flimsy apology. However, things were different this time. I didn't answer. I didn't recoil. They were seated in it by me. Then my door was knocked on. My sister was the one. It had been months since I'd last seen her. There she stood dressed for the gym. She was without makeup, with a Starbucks cup in one hand and a dead phone in the other, as if she was unable to choose between negotiating and fighting. "Can we talk?" she said. I remained silent, just held the door open before entering again. After sitting down and glancing around as if she was waiting for help, she inquired whether I had had my brief moment and was prepared to make the necessary corrections. The word she used was that, tantrum-like moment. I informed her that nothing would be fixed, no more. Mom was worried sick, she added, rolling her eyes, and Dad had to borrow a neighbor's phone to call his office. Said they didn't understand why I was destroying everything in a single day and were anxious and perplexed. I simply gazed at her. I came to the realization one day that there was a greater disparity between their and my perspectives than I had previously believed. I questioned her about if she thought this was all about a birthday that had been missed. She didn't respond, just continued to talk about how I had caught everyone off guard and interrupted them. So I made a list. I've been supporting them financially, emotionally, and technologically for years by paying their bills. Never received gratitude. I was never asked to do anything that didn't require me to assist them. And the one day just one that wasn't about them. They excluded me on purpose, not by chance, voluntarily. She remained silent for some while. Then she made a statement that stuck. The explanation, she continued, was that you never asked for anything like that. Yes, I said. That's what made it simpler to forget me. For that, she had no response. Soon after she departed, no yelling, no sobbing. Again, only stillness. However, it's a distinct sort. Heavier. My mom sent me another email 2 days later. It wasn't frenetic this time. It seemed strangely quiet. She said that I should have approached them like an adult, but instead I handled things in a way that disappointed her. That I was selfish for shutting them off. Selfish, I felt the word in my throat like poison. From the woman who pretended I didn't exist and used my money to reserve a vacation to a winery. I was self-centered. I didn't respond. However, things worsened. It appears that points from one of the cards I had linked them to years prior were used to pay for the spa vacation. They spoke about it. My arguments, my prizes. They had used my name to rack up thousands of dollars in meals and hotel stays. It wasn't until I looked through my account history that I realized. They didn't just ignore me. On my dime, they rejoiced. Then something inside of me simply stopped working. All the hurt, all the resentment. The sharpness subsided. It simply froze. My anger subsided. I no longer need their comprehension. All I wanted was some distance. Peace was what I want. And there would be no more justifications, no more second chances. I eliminated the credit company from everything after calling them. After that, I formally complained about my card being misused and their transactions were looked into. It may escalate, the representative warned. Let it, I replied. I had stopped playing their game. They continued to strive for victory nevertheless. They began phoning the other members of the family to twist the truth rather than to apologize or offer an explanation. I began receiving strange texts from cousins within a week. It has been years since we spoke. Such like, hey, I'm not sure what's going on, but your mom looks like she's really hurt. Perhaps simply have a conversation with her before things go out of hand. We all make errors, guy, one person even commented. She remains your mother. Still my mother. I laughed at that line. None of them bothered to argue with me. What was the purpose? The full story was unknown to them. When my mom ruined her credit, I sat up late helping her apply for aid, but they weren't there. They were unaware of the occasions when I forewent dining out in order to pay a debt. She didn't remember. They felt I was the villain after seeing the drama. Because the noise was coming from me. My mother was an expert in her field. She allowed the emotional, filthy work be done by crying to others who were unaware of the truth. A classic move. Make me appear unappreciative so she may maintain her victim persona. However, not everyone was convinced. I got a call from my dad's sister, Aunt Lisa. She has always appealed to me. She's intelligent. No filter, she said. 9 of the 10 variations of this story that I've heard seem awful. In reality, what took place? That's why I advised her not to mince words. They never even intended to thank me for the birthday, the cards, the streaming, the years of financial support, and the way they made me feel like a fallback option. She didn't speak out. She just remarked, "Yeah, that tracks once I was done." Am I going too far? I questioned. "No, you're the first one to quit acting like they're not selfish," she remarked. That struck close to home because that's just what it was, acting. Acting as though we were close. Acting as though I was as important as I made them. They were acting as though I wasn't a convenience. I received another call later that week, this time from a friend of my mom's. I hadn't seen this woman since high school. She said that my mother was inconsolable, missed me, and feared that she would never be able to get me back. Here's what troubled me, though. My mother hadn't given me a call yet, not once. She would email. She had dispatched individuals. The family had been agitated by her. However, she never once picked up the phone, swallowed her pride, and said that she had made a mistake. For her, that would be acknowledging that she had done something incorrectly. She was waiting for me to mend it again instead. At that moment, I realized that nothing had changed. Not at all, I decided as a result. I wrote a parting note to put a stop to it, not to start a fight. I composed. I didn't ignore you because of a single birthday. You've spent years demonstrating to me that I was only helpful when I was useful, so I shut you off. I finally believed you when you excluded me from your life. I have lost my anger. I just finished. I forwarded it to my sister, father, and mother. I then blocked them. That should be the end of it, I thought. However, they don't tolerate quiet. When they're out of control, no. Everything became silent a week after I blocked them. No unexpected calls, emails, or messages from folks I hadn't spoken to in years. Nothing except silence. Tyler then knocked. He was holding a 6-pack in one hand and tacos in the other, as if he knew I needed an excuse to let him go. On the porch, we sat. At first, he remained silent, just handed me a drink and cracked it open. At last, he remarked, "Your mother has been phoning. She wants to make things right, everyone says." I questioned, glancing at him. What should be fixed? He gave a shrug. She just stated that she wanted to speak. She claims that things went out of control and that she didn't want to hurt you. I posed the identical question to him that I had been asking myself. Did she ever acknowledge her true actions? Tyler took a moment to respond, just sipped his beer one more. Then he declined. Simply put, everything has gone too far. She also wants you to change your ways. Turn around. I couldn't get the statement out of my head the rest of the evening. No, it wasn't. We'd want to put this right. No, it wasn't. We've now realized how we let you down. It returned as if I had been the one who had strayed. As if I had just lost my path and had to get back into the fold. The fold where I paid the bills remained silent and allowed them to pretend as if nothing had occurred. They have no intention of fixing it. They were attempting to regain authority. I kept quiet with Tyler. He was aware of my position. He left the remaining tacos behind and nodded as if he had anticipated it. However, I witnessed something that struck in a different way that same evening. On Instagram, my sister shared a lengthy narrative. Nothing straightforward, only ambiguous statements concerning treachery and those who lose their sense of origin. My name was not mentioned by her. She was not required to. There were half of the remarks that were reciprocal, inquiring about her well-being. Her pals said things like, "You've done so much for people," in the other half. "Some people simply don't value it." I burst out laughing. After 5 years of supporting her online, she was now portraying herself as the victim of betrayal. My mother sent me an email 2 days later. Subject line: "Let's make this right." Something forced me to open it after I had nearly erased it without reading it. The message's body was brief. "This is not what I ever wanted. I've erred." Now I see that. "We are still your family, though. Return home. Let's have a conversation. Let's make this right. You are loved by us. We pardon you." The final sentence: "We pardon you," as if I had excluded them from a birthday celebration. As if I were the one who shut them out of their own life or depleted their finances. As if I'd been given an opportunity and blown it. "No, I apologize. No, we were mistaken." It was only a soft-edged nebulous implication that both sides had made equal mistakes, and that I just had to return and resume our conversation where we left off. They wanted me to make things simple for them once more. I thus didn't answer. Rather, I completed what I had begun. I checked all the accounts I had linked them to, not only the ones I purchased, but also the ones in which my name, email address, or anything else was utilized. A gym account, a common Costco membership, and previous rental applications. 2 years ago, I helped them open, but I forgot. I distanced myself from everything. I removed every indication of my presence from their logistics, every connection that I had built that facilitated their lives. Lost. The letter then arrived. An actual tangible letter arrived in the mail. Poor penmanship. 3 whole pages in blue ink. Mom. She began as usual. "You are missed. You are loved by us. You are our son." The well-crafted apology followed. "If you feel excluded, I apologize. We never meant to do that." As though it hadn't been really deliberate. As though I simply misinterpreted. The following paragraph discussed how difficult things had been for them recently. That father was having financial difficulties. That there was instability in my sister's job, that they needed a little assistance to get back on course. Then the worst part: "We're prepared to pardon you, whenever you're prepared to return." I realized then that they were not going to change, never ever. They had no intention of making apologies. They desired the benefits to return. They wished to avoid the difficult phase, revert to the version of the relationship that worked best for them, and avoid taking responsibility. After folding the letter, I returned it to the envelope and threw it in the garbage. I made plans to travel out of state the next morning, not a holiday. Something more extensive, a new beginning. I had been circling them for so long in the hopes that they would consider me more than just a convenience. But at last I realized the reality. I didn't need them to change, and they wouldn't. They were free to spin it whatever they pleased. They may claim that I overreacted, that I grew cold, or that I abandoned them, but I knew better. They will soon learn the true meaning of losing a loved one. I didn't care enough to explain it again, not because I wanted retribution anymore. I didn't say a thing. No farewell. No grandiose farewell. I just packed my belongings, shut off my phone, and spent 16 hours driving nonstop, until I could hardly see the city that knew me and emptied me in the rearview mirror. I kept Tyler in the dark. It wasn't until the last day that I told my employer. I simply walked out. It was only a new state, not a crazy jump across the nation. For the first time in years, however, it seemed like a different world. Nobody was aware of my whereabouts. Nobody had any expectations of me. No one else's phone bill had my name on it. The emergency contact wasn't me. The fallback, the fixer. All I was Mike. I rented a modest apartment, obtained a job at a tiny IT company, and led a simple life. I prepared my own meals and watched whatever I wanted to see. simply paid for my belongings. At first, the nighttime silence seemed odd, as if something were lacking. Then I understood what it was, though. The waiting. Nobody was requesting anything. No guilt trips, no ambiguous signals. No more being handled like a heartless ATM. After 3 weeks of the relocation, I didn't recognize the number that called me. I rang it out. Voicemail. My sister. Her voice was not one of rage. She sounded worn out. "I know you're probably not going to listen to this, but I'm at a loss for what to do," she stated. "Mom weeps nearly every day. Dad continues looking in the mailbox, but there isn't a letter there. Tell us you're still alive, please." I gave it 2 listens. I then removed it. Now they want tranquility. They still hadn't told me the one thing I needed to hear, yet they still sought my forgiveness. We were mistaken. Rather, they continued to talk about themselves, about their suffering, bewilderment, and regrets. What they did was never the point. Never about how I was brought up. I was used and thrown away. When I eventually stopped making things simple, they pretended to be astonished. They didn't miss who I was, they missed what I did. My dad sent me an email a few days later. There were just 2 lines. "I am aware that you have already decided. I honor that. Recognize that I was mistaken. All of us were. None of it was fair to you." I didn't immediately remove that one. I also didn't answer. After the initial perusal, I left it in my email, never to be opened again. Similar to an artwork at a museum, a remnant of the apology I finally heard after years of waiting. It's too late to make a difference. It's too late to make any changes. However, it did arrive. Too many individuals never even understand it. Then it really did go silent. The phone calls ceased. The messages ceased. Perhaps they finally got it. Perhaps they at last understood that love isn't truly love at all if it isn't accompanied by presence, respect, and effort. Eventually, Tyler discovered my whereabouts. When I opened the door, when he knocked one weekend, he simply smiled and remarked, "So this is where peace resides now." I opened the door for him. We conversed. I told him everything I had been thinking, including the fact that I was no longer upset, just got done. Even if I didn't despise them, I refused to return. I was unable to. He gave a nod. Then he remarked something that occasionally still crosses my mind. They never truly had you, despite their constant claims to have lost you. All they had was access. He was correct, and that struck a deeper chord than any apology. They did not lose a sibling, a nephew, or a son. The part of me that accepted being ignored, used, and forgotten was gone, and there was nothing left for them to cling to once that version of me vanished. I now occasionally receive cards over the holidays. No address for return. "I was just thinking of you," signed by my parents. I never reply, but I also don't discard them. They are kept in a drawer beside me. I enjoy remembering how far I've come, not because I'm clinging. It's not always necessary to go back in order to forgive. Sometimes it just means advancing without bringing the burden with you. The bridge wasn't burned by me. I just made sure they were aware of my transgression, and I had no intention of going back.